the fact that the UNSD and the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development have done a wonderful work, especially in light of what they meant by the new collaborative. And also, if you look at the topic, you can identify 4 other areas: our whole agenda of transforming and integrating administrative data. 2 issues that come out is whether we are doing it in a cross-cutting way and what is the practical evidence. And the last part has to do with the accelerated implementation. The last bit gives me a sense that, yes, we seem to be doing a lot in the area of administrative data, but we need to step up our game to ensure that we have an accelerated implementation. So this is what is going to inform the discussions that I want to put to the table for our consideration. The diagram that I share with you, it's something that I got from UNSD, and it's the whole discussion around transforming and integrating administrative data to statistical outputs. But before we engage in there are 4 issues or questions that I would want to put to the table for our thinking. 2 of them are broadly related to issues on statistics, and the other 2 are related to administrative data and where we are with it now. So the first question is whether countries in themselves have an understanding of the level of uptake of statistical outputs. And what is important for me in this regard is the changes that have occurred over time. If you have a very high uptake and you are not seeing any change, then we need to be concerned about. And on the reverse, if you have a low uptake and you are not seeing change over time, then there is something that we also need to think about. Then the second area, which I think it's broad, but we always need to engage in once we are thinking about transition to administrative data, is this whole conversation around statistical literacy. And again, I put forward the same question, asking to what extent has it changed over the period? I think the way the topic was phrased indicates that we don't want to have a conversation around why administrative data and what has to be done. And again, I commend GPSDD and the UNSD for putting up the inventory of resources and sharing evidence across the globe. It's very resourceful. I think what we need to avert our minds to is how administrative data can be transformed and integrated in different contexts. In this case, within the Ghanaian economy, how do we ensure that administrative data plays out? And this has to do with our understanding of the National Statistical System. In my mind, I say a synonym for administrative data is the National Statistical System. You cannot drive administrative data when you don't have control over the National Statistical System. That is why I synonymize administrative data with the National Statistical System. Then the 4th area that I think we should reflect on is whether, as we march towards a transformation and integration, we have a roadmap which clearly tells us what we need to do moving forward. One of the things that I'm going to mention in my concluding remark is this whole idea of, or temptation of, doing things in a very haphazard way without necessarily sequencing what needs to be done. So on the next 3 slides, I'm just going to rush through them. What I simply did was to look at the thematic areas that we have in terms of administrative data that we have on the UN website, which talks about the 3 working teams that we all identified. The first one being the institutional framework. And I've walked through the 21 issues, and I'm asking myself whether Ghana, if we are to have a roadmap and we are to assess ourselves in terms of how we are doing on this road, we'll be able to see the progress that we are doing over time. Of the 21 issues, I realize it's only 2 areas that we can comfortably say that some work is being done. With the other areas, conversations have started, but not much progress is being done. So one of the conclusions that I put forward in this presentation is we should have a clear sense of the roadmap. We should have the foundational issues. We should have the takeoff issues. And at the end of the day, we should say over 5 years, this is where we want to be. This is a conversation that have started, but we've not been able to document it. And I feel that the resources that we have in terms of the 21 issues that we have over the 3 areas, institutional framework, data management, and technical interoperability and linking, gives us a sense of how to assess ourselves on this roadmap. I move forward to talk about cross-cutting issues from a foundational point of view. And the first thing I do is to share with you what we are doing in Ghana to ensure that we really go ahead with administrative data. And I look at this from 3 areas. Our 5-year corporate plan specifically, categorically talks about what we want to do in the area of administrative data to ensure that we really are transforming and integrating administrative data in what we do. First is to train district statistical officers in the whole process of engaging with administrative data, to digitize and catalog official documents, develop harmonized administrative data collection templates. And what I want to emphasize on in this presentation, with my next 2 slides, talks about is the Statistical Service Act. And thirdly, we have this project with the World Bank on harmonizing and improving statistics. Lately, we reviewed this program and looked at the extent to which the whole project emphasizes administrative data relative to other data sources. In terms of the Statistical Service Act 2019, which got the assent of the President on 24 September, it categorically mentions Ghana Statistical Service playing that coordinating role in the entire national statistical system. And one of the things that it says specifically with administrative data is Clause C, 4C, which says it's going to determine the manner in which ministries, departments, agencies, district assemblies, and statutory bodies will collaborate with the service in the collection, compilation, publication of statistical information, including statistics derived from activities of those entities. The other thing that it talks about, which we are currently doing, is to develop and create awareness to operationalize the Code of Ethics and Practice. This is a document that if you go online to search, I must say that quite a number of developing countries do not have a Code of Ethics and Practice to guide the operations within the national statistical system. Clause 53 talks about administrative data specifically, and it mandates ministries, departments, agencies, and district assemblies to submit to the government statistician administrative data in accordance with this act. So from a documentation point of view, I think we are well solid on that. But what we really need to think about is whether, if you are looking at the cross-cutting issues from a takeoff point of view, we are really there. One of the challenges, as I said in my first slide, is the whole issue around statistical literacy. And we are of the view that for administrative data to get the needed accelerated implementation, one of the things that we need to do is those who communicate statistics across the department, across the MDAs, because what we realize is that it's a challenge because ministries, departments, and agencies are operating in silos and their statistics do not converge. And every now and then we are challenging the basis for which we are doing or generating a particular statistic. So one of the first things we thought we should do is to have a statistical literacy program for journalists in the bid to whip up the whole interest on the use of statistics in the country. We've reached an advanced stage with support from Hewlett Foundation. We are developing a data quality assurance framework, and based on our partnership with Statistics Denmark and other international organizations, we are receiving technical inputs where we're going to have this data quality assurance framework, in which we're going to have the Code of Ethics and Practice as part of that document. We are also leveraging all our activities in such a way that administrative data will be enshrined. Now we're going into a full census come 2021, but clear in our minds, we started talking about the kind of census that we're going to do in 2030. And we've hinted all the MDAs our intention to have a population register and have a sense of it around 2025, so that by 2030, we'll be able to integrate administrative data with traditional censuses. And one of the things we did just last week is to have this engagement with producers and users of official statistics on what we are going to get from administrative data if we go ahead with the census. Then at the takeoff stage, you also need to think about your local and international partnerships. And in this case, as I said, we're leveraging on quite a number of collaborations, specifically with Denmark, Norway, and the Office of National Statistics in the UK. What are some of the practical evidence that we can show in terms of statistical outputs? With support from Bloomberg Data for Health Initiative, we've been able to use police records to understand the extent, to understand external causes of death. Here specifically, we are looking at road accidents, homicides, and so on. And also from the prison services, we've been able to monitor indicator 16.3.2, which is on unsentenced detainees. And since 2017, we've consistently done that. Administrative data is the base for our reporting on the SDGs. And as of last year, we've been able to increase our reporting of the SDGs from administrative data by 50%. My last point has to do with what we need to do to accelerate implementation of the transformation and integration of administrative data in what we have to do. I outlined just 5 challenges which I think we need to address. The first has to do with, we need to think about the availability and quality of the basic data that the MDAs have, and more importantly, the sync between the data across the MDAs and with the Ghana Statistical Service. Again, going back to the law, it categorically says that we think about 4 different types of statistics, and it's only Ghana Statistical Services that would produce official statistics. Another challenge that I think moving forward we need to address to accelerate implementation is this whole idea of capacity across the MDAs. What we're doing now is to develop a competency framework. The draft has been developed and shared with all the MDAs, and Ghana Statistical Service is positioning itself as far as the recruitment of statisticians in the various MDAs are concerned, and also over time get a sense of how these statisticians within the MDAs and also in statistical service will be comparable in terms of their capacity and how they're going to progress over time. We need to address the issue of standard ways of collecting and storing administrative data. And as I indicated, you need to synonymize administrative data with the National Statistical System. And one of the things that I emphasize here is the functional role of the Statistics Advisory Committee. What our law enables us to do is to set up a 25-member Statistics Advisory Committee that meets twice every year, and their whole mandate is to address the differences and approve of official statistics so that we can ensure harmony in the sector. Then I think the other issue we need to think about is the biases that we always talk about. And I look at these biases from 3 points of view. One is the source of administrative data, whether it's from official records, whether it's from transactions. Depending on the type of administrative data, the bias will be specific to it. Again, one of the biases that I think we need to address is the historical component of integrating administrative data with surveys and censuses. We've just done an agricultural census, and what we realized was that administrative data on estimates on the production of agricultural produce significantly varies from what we are getting from the census. So there was the need to historically look at how we can address the biases that are emerging from the use of administrative data and censuses. One thing I want to also emphasize on is the sector specificity of this engagement. And I strongly believe that the workings around administrative data from a health point of view will be significantly different from an education point of view, and for that matter, all the other MDAs. Then on my last slide, I say there is the need to measure progress towards transformation and integration of administrative data. And the first 3 slides that I showed, which is based on the thematic areas for the work streams that we've identified under this collaborative engagement, will be the starting point. And obviously it has to be adapted for each particular country. Sector-specific engagement on the transformation is critical, as I mentioned. And what I'm emphasizing on again for the second time is the need to sequence the different activities across the roadmap. As I said, what are the foundational issues? What are the takeoff issues? And when is the time that you think that you've matured and you can sustain your engagement? Lastly, one thing that I think we've not done, but we need to begin to think about is showcasing the returns of administrative data. And here I look at the showcasing from 2 perspectives, that is financial and data. We should be able to quantify the extent to which administrative data is saving us financially, and also the extent to which the granularity and frequency of data is enhanced with the use of data. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Anim, for that comprehensive talk. Very, very interesting, and a huge congratulations for all of the work that you've been doing in Ghana to leverage administrative data. I want to highlight to participants that we are recording, and the event is being live streamed on YouTube right now. We will make presentations and recordings available after this session. So without further ado, I'd like to turn now for a second keynote to Francesca Perucci, who is the Chief of the Development Data and Outreach Branch in the UN Statistics Division, where she oversees the work of the Statistics Division on the SDGs. Between 2002 and 2012, she was responsible for the program on global monitoring of the MDGs. And Ms. Perucci has a deep background in the UN as a technical advisor on gender and social statistics. So over to you, Francesca.
Thank you so much, Jenna, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues everywhere. It's a great pleasure for me to be in this side event today of the UN Statistical Commission on the collaborative on administrative data. Also, it's my great pleasure to say that this is really a successful example of a good collaboration between the UN and other stakeholders. The Global Partnership for Sustainable Development data represents a very wide range of other stakeholders, data community data communities. So it's really great to see this collaboration and the work done by countries. The collaborative on administrative data is really work done by countries, sharing their experiences, their best practices, and learning from each other. So what I'd like to highlight is how important it is to leverage the power really of administrative data sources for statistical purposes, in particular to meet the challenges of the 2030 agenda overall. And how important it is to look at the administrative data sources as one of the data sources to be integrated with all other data sources, both what we say, traditional data sources and non-traditional data sources. Some people call them big data. I like to talk about data sources overall. The idea when we started thinking of this was a very informal conversation at the margin of the Statistical Commission in 2020, almost a year ago. It was a chat almost at the Vienna Cafe, the Statistical Commission, and talking about the importance of using administrative data sources and linking the countries across and to be able for them to share their experiences. And of course, we didn't know that in a matter of days, the world would have been changed by the impact of COVID-19. And pretty soon, the idea of the collaborative became something else. It became a way for the statistical community to support each other on the response to COVID-19 and making use of data from all possible data sources. And of course, administrative data sources are a very good way to supplement and also replace, in some cases, the regular data collection programs that were completely halted in many countries because of the impact of the pandemic. So now, almost a year later, what we see has been the collaborative has made great progress. And we have more than 20 countries involved and around 25 regional and international organizations working in the collaborative. And really, as I said earlier, the work is in the hands of countries. So it's really great to see that it's countries who share their experience of really learning from each other. One important feedback is that we received in the discussion with countries and the various international and regional organizations is that it's important to build on what's been already done. And as we all know, there are different work streams and very specific programs and initiatives on the various thematic areas, right? On the various components of the overall administrative data work area. We have, for instance, very intensive work that's been done for decades on improving CRVS, civil registration and vital statistics systems, on business registers, etc. And those are both at the regional and the global level. So the collaborative learned very soon that it was important to learn from each other and build on these communities, but there was also a need to link them across. So again, looking at administrative data sources as one of the important data sources. So looking at the whole system together, how we bring them to the national statistical systems in a coordinated and effective way. So there it comes to interoperability and the importance of ensuring that the data processing and integration are easy and effective. And that's why the data collaborative is a very important component specifically on data interoperability. So the work in the last few months has confirmed that, yes, we made progress, but there are many challenges and that we need to really learn from each other and that we need to understand what's being done and how we can use what's already available. So that's why there was an inventory. We'll hear from my colleague, Viveke Nielsen, later about the details of what the collaborative has done. So it's also important that we look at what the gaps are in the information and also to understand, how we can build trust and how we can obtain the data, how we can share the data across the system and how we can learn from the data owners what the main challenges are in their data set. And I'd like to highlight, to stress here the fact that we're not yet dealing with really building directly capacity in the different line ministries, working with the data owners in their respective areas, but the work building the system and improving the coordination across the system, learning from each other, is also benefiting directly the data owners. And the plans are a little bit later in the process, in the work of the collaborative, to bring the data owners directly into the initiatives. So while the work of the collaborative so far has included much information sharing, brainstorming to better assess the needs and the gaps, the plan for the work as we move forward is to develop more concrete work plans, which again will feed into an overall longer term strategy. So the strategy is expected to guide the work of the collaborative from onward, and will address longer term needs to access and use administrative data for statistical purposes in a coherent and cross-cutting manner. And again, this is really building on the advances, as I said, that are made also in the various sectors and by different partners, and also by specific, very important initiatives that have been ongoing already for a while. So a key overall goal is to increase involvement to more countries and actors, and maybe even more importantly, to bring more perspectives from the side of the data owners. So to do this successfully, the experience so far has shown that it's important to showcase not only the benefits for the data producers, but that this collaboration and integration benefits the government overall and the whole statistical system. And also, it's important to think in terms of data owners as line ministries. So they build their capacity as data producers and data users, but they build their capacity overall in terms of how they can operate, because of course, they are better able to have well-informed policy interventions. So I hope that we will learn a lot today from this event, and we can count on the broader community. Many of you who are listening from around the world and are interested in contributing to this work, and very much look forward to continuing the work with our partners from GPSDD and from all countries that are already participating in the collaborative. Thank you so much. Over to you, Jenna.
Thank you, Francesca. Wonderful to hear those reflections and the way in which the collaborative fits in and builds on, as you said, the many great different initiatives and work underway, and really leverages countries' experiences and learning. So to hear more about the collaborative itself, we're going to hear from Viveke Nielsen. Viveke is an interregional advisor on statistical training and capacity building at the UN Statistics Division, a role she's been in since September 2018. Before that, she worked with Statistics Norway at the Division for Development Cooperation, and she has over 12 years of experience working on capacity development with statistics. So over to you, Viveke.
Thanks so much, Jenna. I'll also be sharing a presentation to showcase some of the work that we have been doing in the collaborative since it was started a few months ago. Just need to get it to full screen. So, so the objective of the collaborative, I think, as we've also heard from Francesca and from you before, Jenna, is really to address the more urgent and the longer term needs to access and use administrative data for statistical purposes in a coherent and cross-cutting manner, building on advances made in various sectors and by different partners. It's multi-stakeholder. It focuses on the work being done in countries, but also in collaboration with regional and international agencies and other partners. As of now, it's a platform for collaboration and sharing of knowledge and experiences, and I will be sharing more on this briefly with this new inventory of resources that Francesca also mentioned in her speech. We are aiming to focus on simple and ready to implement solutions that address priority gaps in countries that make, as of now, at least limited or little use of administrative data for statistical purposes. But we are also hoping to focus and make this collaborative and the resources relevant for all countries and all people who work with administrative data. At the moment, it mainly has members from statistical offices in the countries. Moving forward, we are also hoping to expand that so that we get more of the different perspectives when it comes to this important work on really increasing the usage and making the government more efficient by using administrative data also for statistical purposes. I'm moving on to a different topic in a sense. As you all know, this is a side event to the Statistical Commission. And at the Statistical Commission itself, which takes place from 1st to 3rd and 5th March, we have a background document on the collaborative that you can find under agenda item 3A. And we're also asking for an endorsement of the launch of the collaborative. So any input from you who are joining us here as countries is of course very welcome. Going back to the collaborative, it was already mentioned that we are really trying to take an approach that is cross-cutting, but also including all the different work on the sectoral elements, different thematic areas, etc. And here we will build on and are building on what is already existing. Further, we also try to work on different levels of system development, learning by doing, etc. So really 3 different angles to the approach. But the cross-cutting is, I think, really the new thing that we are focusing on and that we are trying to bring to the picture, to really create learning across countries and across different thematic areas, rather focusing on the process than the different specific thematic work areas. In the summer of 2020, we established 3 task teams. Many of you are already familiar with them. This is following the process approach, looking at first and foremost the institutional framework, coordination and partnerships. Second, focusing on data management and standardization, so a bit more technical, but still also really focusing on the collaboration and coordination, but at a more technical level. And third, more technical interoperability and linking. So all of these task teams have progressed in their work, discussed more specifically what they want to focus on, and we are all in the process of also setting up work plans. The focus and the goals and the outcomes are very much linked to really bringing together materials that are already available and then look at what else would be needed moving forward. And that really brings us to one of the key outputs that we have of the collaborative so far. I'm very pleased to share with you all that we now have an inventory of resources at global level that highlights a lot of the materials that have already been developed by partners in countries, in regions, and within different thematic areas. As you can see here, it's a beta version. It's still work in progress, and we would be very happy to receive more materials from you. But we already have, I think, 70 or 80 different resources in the inventory. And I think Karen will be sharing the link to the inventory with you here in the chat. But it's also available here at the bottom of the screen. Looking a bit more at the inventory itself, you can see that there are different areas that you can search by. And maybe the most important one is that you can search by type. And here the case studies is also a new development. We have asked all the countries that are part of the collaborative, as well as other countries, to share case studies with us. Examples of how they have been working with the use of administrative data for statistical purposes, so that we can get some really practical level experiences and share those, because that is the feedback that we have very often heard, that there is really a need to learn more of what others are doing to get inspiration and ideas. That being said, of course, the case studies are always practical and related to a specific context and country, so that there's always a caution to look at what is relevant in its own in your own context, and also, of course, first and foremost, adhere to the international recommendations and guidelines where those exist. Just showing what a case study here could, for instance, look like. We have an example from Kyrgyzstan related to the modernization of the statistical legal framework. You will see that it's highlighted in red as a case study, that you can also find different thematic words or kind of keywords that you can use. And you can also click to read more. And for the case studies, there is quite a lot of information provided. So have a look and see what you can find and what could be useful for you in your context. Second, we also have e-learning and webinar as a thematic area that a topic that you can focus on or look for. Here are just two examples of e-learning courses from ILO and from the World Bank. Also, again, with the keywords that you can use in the free search to find what is maybe specifically relevant to you. And a third area that I wanted to highlight is that we also have tools. We've received and collected a lot of information from different regions and countries on tools that are available. And then we also have different other categories, areas that you could look into. The resources that are not case studies would basically usually be a link to a more detailed or to the documents or the webinars themselves, while the case studies provide an overview of the materials. And it's kind of a specification of what have been the positive experiences, what were challenges, maybe there were some champions in the picture, etc. So just quickly also on the way forward, we will continue working in the 3 task teams, of course, and also on the inventory of resources. It would be great also to receive more information. So please don't hesitate to contact us if you have other information that you think should be in the inventory. We really want it to be as complete as possible. We also hope to continue the work and expand the work to foster more interactive exchange among countries and agencies based on the material in the inventory, but also more widely. And then there is also a plan to develop materials where things don't already exist. And here I think a key element is, for instance, on the more softer materials, how do you actually interact? How can you get things working at the practical level? Then I also mentioned we will be working on concrete work plans and also hopefully a strategy that shows a bit more the overall milestones on what we want to achieve. We're also happy to have wider participation. So please help us in reaching out to more actors, and also if you think this is something where you could contribute and where you would like to participate also to learn from others, please reach out to us. And here, of course, countries are really at the core of what we want to focus on, because it's the countries in the end that need to work on administrative data for statistical purposes, but partners are of course also welcome, because we all want to work together and ensure that we get as much done together as possible. That's really all from me. As I mentioned, if you have any resources you think should be in the inventory, if you want to join the collaborative, please contact us either here at statistics@un.org or at info@dataforsdgs.org. Thank you. And over to you, Jenna.
Thank you, Viveke, for that comprehensive presentation. Really exciting to see all the elements laid out, and we'll be sharing that as well. So now I'm very pleased to be able to hand over to Tanya Sayerson, who will be moderating the next portion of the event with a panel. Tanya has been a statistician at the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific since 2013, and leads the Asia Pacific Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Initiative to get everyone in the picture, as well as the Asia Pacific CRVS Partnership and the Regional Steering Group for CRVS in Asia and the Pacific. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Diana, and thank you to the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data and UNSD for, first of all, organizing this side event, and obviously also the establishment of the collaborative. I'm really pleased to be moderating this part of the session today, and we have a really wonderful panel so with people from countries. So we really look forward to hearing your inputs. And I want to start off with Jorge Urrutia. He's an economist with specialization in economics applied to public policies, international political economy and development, applied statistics, and programming. He's also leading one of the task teams that Viveke mentioned, and that's the one on institutional framework, coordination, and partnerships. In his role, he's currently responsible for the Department of Statistical Infrastructure at the National Statistical Office of Chile, and whose main functions involve the coordination with the public-private network of data generation for the improvement of the production of administrative data for statistical purposes. So he's obviously the right one to be leading this task team. His organization is also responsible for defining the set of rules and policies, procedures, norms, and relationships, systems and processes for the management and administration of the National Statistical Offices data assets. So Jorge, it's great to have you here. And I have a couple of questions for you, but first of all, as the task team lead, how would you rate the engagement and the interest in the collaborative so far? I mean, looking at the number of participants here today, it looks pretty good.
Hello. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to be here at this side event, which I think highlights the importance of working together on the intensification of access to and use of administrative data, right? So far, we are convinced that all members have been committed and have shown great interest and work in what we are doing, mainly because we share the need to advance in the access to administrative data to better perform our work as statistical offices, but also with the conviction that in addition to access, we have to continue working from the technical team to maximize its use in the statistical production. However, it is important to point out that part of our leadership role and responsibility lies in being able to organize the work of the teams very well, so that with the guidance and support of the UNSD and GPSDT, we can be effective in the activities we carry out in such a way that each effort contributes to the achievement of the objectives that, by sense, must have practical application. In our opinion, it is essential to continue working together to concretize in the work horizon the objectives and expectations. Thank you, Tanya. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And leading on from that question, I would like to ask our next panelist, and this is Janne Utkilin. She's currently the head of the Division for International Development Cooperation in Statistics Norway. And Janne has a long career in Statistics Norway and has also worked for Eurostat and the UN World Food Programme. In Statistics Norway, Janne has worked with national accounts and business statistics, two domains where administrative data is an important data source. This has given her hands-on experience of combining survey data with administrative data, and she has been a daily user of the Statistical Business Register in Norway. Now she's leading the Division for International Development Cooperation, and the aim here is to share SSB's experience with partner countries who wants to build statistical registers and use administrative data for statistical purposes. And I know we all very much look to Norway with your excellent systems and use of administrative data there. And Janne, what would you say is one of the key values of this collaborative?
So thank you, Tanya. So in my opinion, a key value of this initiative is that it gathers all types of administrative data across the different statistical domains. So there are many ongoing initiatives focusing on only one domain, like business registers or CRVS, while this collaboration gathers them all, and thereby moving us out of the silos which we tend to operate in, so we can learn from each other also across the different domains. So there are many cross-cutting issues as the legal framework, access to data, and quality, where a common approach would be beneficial. So this collaboration can therefore be particularly useful for countries which are in an early stage of using admin data and perhaps planning to make an overall strategy for the way forward. I also think that this collaboration is particularly important in a time when we see more countries looking to digitalize the public sector and making national strategies for digitalization. So although the use of administrative data is not a perfect substitute for surveys, and we have to keep in mind the challenges and limitations, I think it's very important for NSOs to take an active role and be part of the digitalization process in your country. Administrative data can have a great potential, but there is a risk of missed opportunities if the statistical perspective is not taken into account from an early stage of a national digitalization effort. So finally, in less than 1 year, I think the collaboration has already succeeded at becoming a hub for sharing experiences. And in particular, the inventory provides an easy and accessible way of learning about ongoing initiatives and other countries' experiences. And by sharing these experiences, we can easily identify best practices, allowing us to reuse and scaling up solutions that works. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jana. It's very nice to hear those inputs. Our third panelist is Mr. Vincent Ledoux-Essambe-Bome from Cameroon. He's the project manager in the National Institute of Statistics. He is also an expert in project management with almost 15 years experience from the National Institute of Statistics of Cameroon. And he's in charge of studies in the Department of Statistical Coordination, Cooperation and Research, where he's been working for several years now. He focuses on questions related to the development of statistics from administrative sources, so it's obviously great to have him on this collaborative, and in particular on the design and establishment of statistical information systems for administrations. So I was hoping, Vincent, that you would talk a little bit about some of the practical examples that are now included from Cameroon on the inventory of resources that the collaborative recently launched. There's a lot of practical examples in there, and I really enjoyed reading the ones from Cameroon. So I was hoping that you could give us a little bit more of information of the case study that you have included there.
OK, merci beaucoup, Tania, et merci aux Nations Unies de nous avoir associés à cette séance de travail. Donc, effectivement, nous travaillons à l'Institut national statistique qui a cette mission d'assurer la coordination d'activités statistiques de tout le système national d'information statistique du monde. Il s'agit d'une structure qui regroupe principalement l'ensemble des administrations sectorielles que nous avons, le ministère de la santé, le ministère de l'environnement, de la justice et d'autres. Je voudrais rappeler que nous sommes dans un système d'information décentralisé. Ça suppose que chaque de ces administrations est encouragée à produire des statistiques de son de compétences. Dans un tel système, l'institut statistique ne peut pas avoir la prétention de pouvoir produire des statistiques qui couvrent l'ensemble des domaines. Au niveau de l'INS, nous produisons, au niveau de l'INS, nous produisons un nombre d'enquêtes qui sont réalisées à fréquence précise, les enquêtes auprès des ménages, auprès des entreprises. Les informations qui sont issues de ces grosses opérations ne permettent pas toujours de mettre en règle avec les questions d'évaluation éthique, tant au niveau international. Au niveau international, par exemple, nous avons la charge d'élaborer chaque année un rapport sur la mise en œuvre des
Sorry, Vincent. We are struggling to hear you. There's some problems with the connection. Would you be able maybe to turn your camera off? That might improve the sound, because we're struggling to hear you and our interpreters are also struggling. So if you could turn off your video, and then let's try and see if we can hear you a little bit better. And please speak slowly as well. Thank you.
D'accord. Alors là, vous me suivez bien? It's okay? OK. Donc, j'étais en train de dire que au niveau de l'INS, nous avons la mission de mener un certain nombre d'activités que nous menons au Parlement et des cette nous permet. Oh là là. Là, c'est bon, là? Allô?
It's a little bit on and off.
C'est bon? Jeanne?
It's a bit...
OK.
Okay, try.
OK. C'est bon, là, Jeanne? C'est bon? Vous m'entendez?
C'est bon.
C'est bon, n'est-ce pas? Do you hear me?
Yes, I think it is okay. Try again, please.
OK, merci, je repars. Je disais que le Cameroun a pris des engagements et a de planification de son développement. Pour le suivi de ces agendas, l'agenda 2030 des Nations Unies, l'agenda 2063
I'm sorry, we cannot hear you.
C'est bon là?
Yes, I think,
Tanya?
no, it's not good. I think let's move on to the last panelist, and then we will return to you afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move to the last panelist, and then we'll try and go back to you after the last panelist.
Okay.
We're really having trouble understanding. Sorry about that. Sorry, everyone. So let's move on to our last panelist. This is Mr. Bhup Sangay from Bhutan. He is from the National Statistics Bureau of Bhutan, and he's a specialist there. And Bhup has just had his 20-year anniversary with the National Statistical Office, so we have a lot of experience here. And he still continues to work in the same Statistics Bureau in the Survey and Data Processing Division. And Bhutan has also submitted some case studies to the inventory. So I was hoping that you would talk about some of the work that you are doing that could be relevant to other countries and agencies.
Good evening. Thank you very much. And like the panelists before me, I would like to re-emphasize on the value of being a member of this collaborative, and also our experiences in the field of administrative data. So I think all of us know that being a member of the collaborative, we get to learn a lot on the best practices in the field of administrative data, which has been emphasized by my colleagues also before. And in particular, I've come to know about the right to access administrative data at unit level with identification data and data protection these are the keywords that are here, and this needs to be in the statistical acts of the countries for the administrative data to be effective. And I think the other thing that we hear, as well as we emphasize at the National Statistics Bureau in Bhutan, is regarding the data quality. I think administrative data, or for that matter, services data, we have to emphasize on the data quality. And also, we hear a lot in our being a member of the collaborative about the coordination that is needed for administrative data, and regarding the metadata that needs to be there. So I think the value that it provides is sometimes the administrative, the survey and census data might not suffice for the data users in general. So as working in a statistical office, you experience that people want to know different things that might not be in the surveys or censuses, and they will say, okay, bring this information to me tomorrow. So what do you do? So I think one of the best things is to invest in our administrative data, and that is also what I have learned, that most of the countries are moving in that direction, at least for some data sources. So with that, thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much for that example. And those overall reflections as well. I would also really like to hear both Chile has submitted a few examples, but at least one of them from Jorge, if you wouldn't mind sharing some examples of the use of administrative data from Chile.
Okay. In the case of Chile, we have two case studies. The first one is the estimation of the number of foreign residents in 1919, right? And 2019, right? Sorry. And the second one is the COVID-19 geostatistical platform. In both cases, I think the key points for success were the collaboration and the cooperation between our statistical office and the different public services that maintain administrative data. With one, we share the need to provide information necessary for national public policy. Building trust between the different stakeholders is key, especially when the regulatory framework doesn't directly allow universal access to administrative data, and where national statistical system needs to be strengthened. However, both access to and use of this administrative data would benefit from appropriate legal framework, right? In our case, we have the mandate from our national director to build trust with the institutions of the national statistical system by proposing and leading different instances of coordination and communication through serious work proposal, right? That is like our situation here in Chile. Thank you. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I wouldn't mind if we could also just hear an example from Norway, because you have so much experience with using administrative data and have contributed quite a lot to the collaborative. So Janne, would you mind giving an example as well?
Yes, thank you, Tanya. So I would like to use this opportunity to draw attention to StatBus, which is our new generic IT solution for a statistical business register. So we have been working on StatBus for a few years now, together with partners, and the aim is to launch the first version this spring. So at the moment, the tool is not in the inventory. There's only information about it, but soon StatBus will be available for free as an open source on GitHub, and the link is already now in the inventory. So the aim has been to design a system that follows best practices as described in UNEC's guidelines for statistical business register, while it's also flexible enough so it can be used in several countries. So the default language are English and Russian, but other languages can easily be added on. So it's important to keep in mind that this is only a technical solution. An NSO that would like to build a statistical business register needs, first of all, to ensure access to data, which is perhaps the greatest challenge, regardless of which technical solution you choose. In addition, the NSO must decide on the methodology for the system, and they must assign sufficient manpower for the daily work. And although the software is free, installing and maintaining the system requires advanced IT skills. So in other words, to use StatBus will require substantial efforts from the NSO to actually establish the business register, but it saves you from building an IT solutions yourself. So we have already been with 4 countries that have implemented test versions of StatBus, and they will be installing the first final version this year. IT tools are, of course, never finalized. Depending on its success and requests from users, a second version of the software might be developed with additional features. So as part of the long-term strategy to ensure maintenance and improvements, we have worked with several partners to build a network of StatBus experts, including NSOs and international organizations. And we hope that StatBus will become a solution that can be of benefit to many countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janne. And I think we're going to try and go back to Vincent to hear, hopefully we can hear you a little bit better now.
Ok, merci Tania. Je ne sais pas si vous me suivez là. It's
Sounds
okay.
better. Sounds better, yes.
It's okay. D'accord, merci beaucoup. Je m'excuse, oui, je m'excuse pour l'interruption de tout à l'heure. Je crois que c'est un problème de connexion Internet. Donc, j'étais en train de dire que le Cameroun est engagé sur plusieurs fronts, tant au niveau international qu'au niveau national. Déjà, au niveau international, les engagements qui ont été pris sont en rapport avec l'agenda 2030 des Nations Unies, et aussi avec l'agenda 2063 de l'Union africaine. Au niveau national, nous avons la stratégie nationale de développement de la statistique qui devrait pouvoir couvrir la période allant de 2021 à 2030. Elle est vraiment alignée à l'horizon des ODD. Donc, ces engagements font en sorte que le Cameroun est tenu de produire un certain nombre d'informations statistiques, pour le suivi et l'évaluation de la mise en œuvre de chacun de ces engagements. Vous comprendrez bien que si au niveau de l'INS, nous arrivons à mener un certain nombre d'enquêtes statistiques pour pouvoir renseigner certains indicateurs, il y a beaucoup d'indicateurs dans la liste des indicateurs ODD et dans la liste des indicateurs en rapport avec l'agenda 2063, et même au niveau national, qui n'ont pas pour source d'information les enquêtes que nous réalisons. Il faut vraiment aller chercher dans les registres, dans les fichiers administratifs pour pouvoir produire ces indicateurs. Donc, c'est là tout le défi que nous avons aujourd'hui au niveau national. Et fort heureusement, avec l'appui de certains bailleurs de fonds, nous avons pris, comme on dit souvent, le taureau par les cornes. C'est-à-dire que nous avons anticipé pour permettre aux différentes administrations sectorielles, chaque ministère, de pouvoir produire les statistiques qui sont de son champ de compétences. Donc, c'est cet exercice que nous avons fait dans le cadre d'un programme qui a été mis en œuvre entre 2012 et 2015. Et je dois vous avouer que c'est un programme qui a produit des effets positifs. Des effets positifs parce que, cela a permis d'assurer une certaine sensibilisation sur la nécessité de produire et d'utiliser les statistiques au niveau national. Une deuxième chose, c'est que ça a vraiment renforcé la culture statistique. C'est vrai que nous ne sommes pas encore au top, mais les avancées nous permettent quand même d'être satisfaits. Donc, le travail, il se poursuit. Le travail, il continue. Il passe par 3 choses principales. La première chose, c'est d'identifier ce qui doit être produit en termes d'informations statistiques. En quelque sorte, la première chose, c'est de répondre d'abord à la question de savoir de quoi avons-nous besoin comme information statistique. Une fois que cela est fait, la deuxième chose a été d'assurer déjà le renforcement des capacités des personnels qui travaillent à la production statistique. On les forme sur la production des statistiques de base, sur l'exploitation des registres, sur l'exploitation des fichiers administratifs, ainsi de suite. Comment est-ce qu'on les exploite pour pouvoir produire telle ou telle autre statistique? Ensuite, il y a un accompagnement dans la disponibilité des ressources qu'il faut pour produire la statistique. Nous avons les ressources humaines qu'il faut renforcer en termes d'effectifs et même de profil. Il y a les ressources matérielles qu'il faut avoir, il y a les ressources financières qu'il faut mobiliser et même les ressources informationnelles. Une fois que les personnels sont formés, nous savons exactement ce que nous devons produire et nous avons ces ressources à disposition. La prochaine étape a été celle de l'accompagnement des différents ministères dans la production des statistiques en utilisant les sources administratives. Il n'est pas question pour ces administrations de faire des enquêtes, mais beaucoup plus d'exploiter ce qu'ils ont comme sources administratives pour produire ces informations. Donc, c'est ce process qui a été utilisé dans le cadre de la mise en œuvre d'un programme que nous avons eu avec l'Union européenne. Aujourd'hui, nous pensons que, en termes de volume, la production statistique administrative s'est accrue. Et le principal défi aujourd'hui, c'est de veiller à ce que cette production soit une production de qualité. C'est pourquoi nous envisageons, dans les semaines et les mois à venir, premièrement, effectuer des évaluations régulières de ce qui est produit en utilisant les statistiques de sources administratives pour nous assurer que les statistiques qui sont produites sont utilisables parce qu'elles sont de bonne qualité. Une autre chose, c'est que nous avons pensé que pour que les statistiques de sources administratives soient effectivement développées, nous devons essayer d'aller vers un dispositif permanent de remontée de l'information. C'est pourquoi nous parlons beaucoup plus de la conception et la mise en place des systèmes d'information statistique au sein de chaque administration sectorielle. Ce dispositif permet qu'à terme, nous puissions mettre en place une formule pour remonter les données depuis le niveau local jusqu'au
Okay, it seems that we have lost connection again, but I'm really glad we've managed to hear something from Vincent because that was really interesting inputs. We're running a little bit behind schedule, but we'll just have one last question that I would like all panelists to respond to. Maybe if you could keep it quite brief, it would be very helpful. Sorry, Vincent, we lost you, so we moved on to the final question. And really, for all of you, what do you think are the key areas of work that the collaborative should tackle moving forward? And I'll start with you, Jorge.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. In the future, I believe that that it is key to have and maintain an integrated and organized knowledge of the work that the different statistical offices and countries are doing with respect to administrative data, right? And that through clear governance, this will allow the correct management of knowledge and access in this area. Along the same lines, the organization and planning of our work in this collaborative focus on a clear and consistent scope, expectation, and objectives are also fundamental. Last but not least, the results of this collaborative group should be meaningful and become a binding support for the necessary transformations in public policies regarding access to and use of administrative data to produce official statistics in every country. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jorge. And I would like to ask you as well, Janne, what do you see the future of this?
Thank you. Yes, so I think, as was said, in many countries, the main challenge is getting access to administrative data. And here, involving the data owners in the collaborative might create more awareness of the benefit of using administrative data. So our experience in Norway is that the data owners have benefited a lot from this cooperation. So Statistics Norway provides feedback on the quality of administrative data through annual quality reports, which is considered very useful according to the data owners themselves. And yes, working with statistics, we know that the data improves when the data is used and scrutinized, and better quality in administrative data is also in the interest of data owners. I'm thinking maybe this is something that we could also make a case study on to showcase how we are working with the data owners and use as a resource. Otherwise, the quality of administrative data is another very important issue that this collaborative could address. And here I just want to mention the ongoing work of the expert group on National Quality Assurance Framework, which is also covering the quality of administrative data. So finally, in addition to involving data owners, the collaboration can also develop advocacy material and creating awareness of the many benefits, as well as the challenges of using admin data for statistics, so that NSOs can take a common approach going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janne, and I very much agree with you that we need collaboration with the line ministries in order to do this properly. Pub, do you have a quick response to what the key areas of the work for the collaborative should be going forward?
Well, thank you once again. I think the importance and need for administrative data is acknowledged by all of us in the statistical field. Obviously, for the advantages that it provides, such as low cost and timeliness. But I think going forward, we need to emphasize more on quality and standardization. I think these are the buzzwords. So first, we should emphasize on quality, as my previous panelist mentioned, on the National Quality Assurance Framework, including the administrative data sources. And then, of course, metadata documentation and coordination, of course, in the administrative data because of various stakeholders involved in it. So with that, I yield back. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I hope we have a good connection to Vincent for this question. Vincent, are you there?
Oui, je vous entends très bien, mais je n'ai pas suivi la question. J'étais un peu déconnecté là. Faut me rappeler la question?
Sorry, yes, the question was, what do you think are some of the key areas that the collaborative should tackle moving forward?
Ok, merci beaucoup, Jeanne. Je pense qu'il faudrait pouvoir rendre les résultats du travail du groupe accessibles à tous les pays, notamment à tous les systèmes d'information statistique. Le travail que le groupe fait, il est vraiment intéressant et je pense qu'il devrait pouvoir aider tous les autres pays à pouvoir s'aligner à la suite. Donc, il y a déjà cette question du partage des résultats des travaux que nous faisons. Il y a la question du renforcement des capacités des structures qui en auront besoin. Et puis aussi la question de la pour capitaliser les expériences que les pays suffisamment avancés dans la production des statistiques de sources administratives peuvent mettre à la disposition des autres pour qu'on puisse effectivement tous migrer, comme on le dit, pour qu'aucun pays vraiment ne soit resté, ne puisse rester en arrière. Donc, je crois qu'il y a ces éléments. Les autres l'ont évoqué. Il y a également la question de la coordination statistique qu'il faudra toujours continuer à explorer. Et enfin, la question de l'évaluation pour qu'on s'assure que les statistiques qui sont produites en exploitant les statistiques les sources administratives sont vraiment des statistiques utilisables parce qu'elles sont de bonne qualité. Donc, à ce sujet, je voudrais vous dire qu'au niveau du Cameroun, nous sommes lancés dans un chantier d'élaboration des lignes directrices pour la mise en place des systèmes d'information en vue du développement des statistiques de sources administratives. Je pense que d'ici quelques mois, nous pourrons effectivement publier ce document de référence qui nous aide au niveau national pour chacune des administrations, mais qui pourrait également servir de tremplin pour les autres pays qui voudraient se lancer dans cet exercice de développement des statistiques de sources administratives. Je vous remercie.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I think this was really, really interesting inputs from all of you. And I especially enjoyed listening to you explaining about the case studies. It's really exciting to see so much progress happening here. And I know that a lot of this case studies on the inventory has also been related to how to administrative data has been used to respond to COVID-19. So yeah, everything was really interesting, and I really appreciate your inputs. And I will give the floor back to Jenna, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. I'll pass it over to my colleague, Karen Bett, who's going to moderate some additional questions from participants. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jenna. Thanks, Tanya. I think that was an interesting session on the panel. We have a couple of questions for the speakers, and I'll combine them just so that in the interest of time. I think there's a question on capacity and coordination, and I want to start with you, Jorge, from your country's experience. How do you deal with capacity building among NSO colleagues to strengthen administrative system? And also tell us more about your active role in coordinating the work on admin data from the NSO.
Thank you, Karen. In our case, today, our main efforts has been put in how to strengthen the capacity here in the National Statistical Office, right? So we were working with a lot of interns and projects to develop capacities, right? Both here in the NSO and the institution of the National Statistical System. But we are convinced that we have a lot to do regarding this kind of aspect, right? Because in the case of Chile, the role of the National Statistical Office in the national statistical system, yes, is just begun, right? In order to strengthening the role of the statistical office in the NSS. So in the work that we are doing now, we are designing our work as National Statistical Office is designing how to work with the national statistical system, right? Thank you.
Thanks, Jorge. I'll come to you next, Jane, and I'm just keen to hear your experience from Norway in terms of capacity building and coordination. But there's also an extra question for you, if you may, from Fakria around, how you use administrative data as a source of population data.
Yeah, so actually I can answer both of them a little bit together, because in the Norwegian system, it's basically based on registers. We have access to about 100 different registers, which is the basis for our whole system. So you can say we have a more of a mature system where we already almost take it for granted that if there's administrative data that we can use, we get access to it and we can find a way of using it. So when it comes to how to coordinate it, we have set up quite an established system of having annual meetings. We have quality reporting. So we have very close dialogue with all the data owners. I think this close dialogue is very important from an early stage. And I think if you manage to get a few on board and they can see the benefit of having administrative data for statistics, it's easier to get the next ones. I think the hardest part is probably to get the first line ministers to come aboard and work together with you. And when it comes to the population statistics, we actually get daily we get an update from the population register in Norway, which feeds into our statistical population registers. So this is of course a main source for us also for. And I think we can probably I can probably find some more resources that we can also share on this topic, because I know we have written a bit about it that we can share also on this inventory. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dane. To you, Pab Sangay, from your experience of Bhutan, just tell us a little bit more about how you deal with capacity strengthening and also coordinating the work on admin data.
Regarding coordination, I would like to say that, of course, Bhutan has a decentralized statistical system. So we coordinate through stakeholder meetings, through annual coordination meetings. And also we do what is called data literacy programs. So these are the main coordination things that are happening. And regarding training, to be frank, within the country, we do not have any statistical courses, universities and all. So for long-term studies, we usually tend to go to other countries. And for short-term studies, of course, besides going to other countries, we do in-country trainings also, so on administrative data also, as in other statistical fields. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pab. Vincent, I'll come to you next, and then next will be Viveke. From your experience as Cameroon, I know there's a comment there that you are doing data stewardship without calling it data stewardship, but tell us more about your experience in building capacity and also coordinating administrative data.
Ok, merci beaucoup, Karen. Pour ce qui est de la coordination statistique, il faut dire qu'elle se fait essentiellement dans le cadre d'un organe qui est mis en place par l'État, que nous appelons le Conseil national de la statistique, qui regroupe, outre les grands producteurs que sont l'INS, le BUCREP, le BUNEC et autres, mais toutes les autres administrations sectorielles qui sont censées produire les statistiques de sources administratives. Comme le Conseil se tient une fois l'an, on ne va pas attendre de nous réunir une seule fois au cours d'une année, parce qu'entre-temps, il faut vraiment pouvoir faire des activités. Nous profitons donc des autres occasions que nous avons lorsque nous nous retrouvons avec les autres administrations sectorielles. Un, pour le renforcement des capacités en termes de messages que nous passons par rapport aux attentes au niveau international vis-à-vis des engagements que le Cameroun a pris. Nous leur présentons les nouvelles approches méthodologiques. Nous leur présentons les attentes vis-à-vis de ce qu'ils doivent produire. Et tout cela se fait dans le cadre d'une stratégie que nous avons au niveau national et que nous appelons la stratégie nationale de développement de la statistique. Cette stratégie, nous devons assurer le suivi de sa mise en œuvre chaque année. Et pour pouvoir produire ce rapport de mise en œuvre, nous sollicitons que chaque administration sectorielle, chaque ministère puisse nous donner un certain nombre d'informations sur un certain nombre de travaux statistiques qui ont été réalisés en exploitant les statistiques de sources administratives. En ce qui concerne le renforcement des capacités, tel que nous l'avons évoqué dans l'étude de cas, Nous sommes en partenariat avec l'école des statistiques de la sous-région CEMAC. Nous avons la chance que cette école est basée au Cameroun, à Yaoundé. Nous sommes donc en collaboration. Ils nous aident non seulement à assurer la formation des personnels des ministères qui ne sont pas des statisticiens et qui ne sont pas des démographes, mais qui travaillent à la production des statistiques en exploitant les sources administratives. Donc, cette collaboration permet que nous élaborions un certain nombre de modules de formation à l'intention de ce personnel. Nous avons des modules pour vraiment les statistiques de base, comme on dit le BABA. Nous avons des modules pour un niveau intermédiaire. Et puis, nous avons un module pour un niveau plus élevé. Donc, on essaye d'organiser des groupes de 20 à 25 personnes que nous formons sur 2 semaines sur chacun de ces modules. Une fois que ceux-là sont formés et qu'ils savent exactement ce qu'il y a à produire, nous ne les abandonnons pas. Donc, le renforcement des capacités se poursuit avec l'accompagnement technique que l'INS apporte à chaque ministère pour pouvoir produire ce qu'il doit produire. Étant entendu que la question du visa statistique qui est inscrite dans notre loi statistique n'est pas encore vraiment opérationnalisée. Donc, nous encourageons les administrations à associer l'INS en amont de tout ce qu'ils font comme travail pour qu'on veille à la qualité de ce qui sera produit à la fin. Donc, voilà un peu comment nous arrivons à gérer et les questions de coordination et les questions de renforcement des capacités. Et nous espérons pouvoir faire mieux dans les prochaines années. Je vous remercie.
Thanks, Vincent. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing your name right. But yeah, I think what you're touching on in terms of NSDS, National Strategy for Development of Statistics, is what takes me to Viveke in her last comments, actually. There's a question around, should countries designing the NSDS include admin data as a sub-strategy? And also kindly, Viveke, touch on, what institutional arrangements work best, statisticians based in line ministries working on admin, or the inverse where this is managed and analyzed by the NSO. Over to you, Viveke, and you have about a minute.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, I think we really heard about the example from Cameroon here, where the administrative data work is incorporated in the National Strategy for Development of Statistics, and I think that is a really good idea. I think that could be, that is probably already a sub-strategy, but having some ideas and some thinking around it in an NSDS sounds like a very good idea overall, especially in the context of the NSS being something that, NSDS being something that is usually also agreed with the different line ministries and the data managers. So on the second question, I think we don't really have a clear idea of what is the best practice. My general response would be that it's really about collaboration, and the national statistical system varies from country to country. So you can't just say that this is the way everyone should do it, because it needs to align with the country setup. So I think if the secondment of statisticians from a National Statistical Office to the different line ministries works and is possible, that's a very good approach. Having different committees or just work arrangements is also a good way. The really important thing is the working together and understanding each other. Thank you.
Thanks, Viveke. I'll now invite Luis Gonzalez from the UN Statistical Division to give his closing remarks and to.
Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you to all the speakers. I just want to give a few closing remarks on behalf of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data and UNSD. So we are very pleased to see that the collaborative is providing an opportunity for all its members to connect with peers and potential partners from other organizations to access and share both explicit and implicit know-how to enhance the use of administrative records for statistical purposes. and that by interacting with others outside our respective organizations, we see new knowledge emerging as international guidelines and the established practices and working hypotheses that we have are examined, are applied, and tested in different contexts. So one common thread in all the interventions that we listened to today is the realization that there are many that many of us face similar challenges, that there are many opportunities for cooperation, for collaboration. The inventory of use cases and of case studies and resources has made clear that while there are many successes that all of the contributors can be very proud of, there are still many challenges, including the need to strengthen institutional arrangements, the need for continuous training and skill building to ensure that the quality at the source, and to invest in modern IT infrastructure, among others. So by working together with the owners of administrative registers to improve data quality and to make better use of the information they collect, we believe that we can also contribute to have a positive impact in how countries are delivering public services to all citizens. So ultimately, a measure of success for the collaborative will be to the extent to which the members can generate improvements in their own organizations and then bring them back to the community, creating a cycle of learning and knowledge sharing for participants. So to conclude, I would like to thank to all the speakers, to our partners, invite everybody to follow the discussion at the Statistical Commission, and also to look at the background document that has been shared in the chat at the beginning of this session. Secondly, I would like to encourage everybody to continue submitting their contributions to the inventory and to make use of it and continue engaging in this sharing of knowledge and experiences. So thank you very much on behalf of GPSDD and UNSD, and thank you to all the members of the collaborative and to all of you that have been following this session.